This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, the northwestern Bahamas experiencing some severe weather conditions. Ahead tonight, what Met officials are saying is the cause. And find out what's being done to expedite the process of identifying remains from Hurricane Dorian.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. A weather system over the northwest Bahamas is producing some heavy showers and strong gale force winds. According to the Met Office, these conditions are being triggered by a cold front across the northern Bahamas, which is drifting southwards. A strong gale warning came into effect earlier today for the northwestern islands, with mariners strongly encouraged to remain in port and beachgoers out of the water. Over on Grand Bahama, the Fishing Hole Road was closed today as a result of flooding in the area. In fact, several videos circulating on social media showed where police prevented motorists from crossing onto either side. There were also videos showing some coastal flooding and strong winds. Meanwhile, over on Eleuthera, police announced the Glass Window Bridge would be closed until further notice due to deteriorating weather conditions. Now, these conditions are expected to spread into the central Bahamas this evening, and while the system should be out of the area by sometime Monday, the Met Office says another frontal system is expected to move into the area by Wednesday morning. In other news, health officials are seeking to expedite the time it takes to identify remains from Hurricane Dorian. The health minister says while they are trying to speed up that process, families must be patient as officials want to ensure they get it right. Our Jillian Gray tells us more.
As teams continue to comb through debris and rubble uncovering bodies of those who perished in Hurricane Dorian, Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands said identifying those bodies could take up to 9 months. However, they are looking to speed up the process.
Using the conventional DNA sampling techniques that are used all around the world, it is not unusual for it to take 6 to 9 months. We are looking at rapid DNA testing, which may shorten that time. DNA samples are taken from soft tissue and from bone, depending on the state of decomposition. Both of those techniques might be used.
The death toll, according to Sands, stands at 68, but he said that number must be confirmed by the Commissioner of Police. More than 40 of those remains are in the morgue in Abaco. The health minister said experts from the UK and Red Cross have confirmed that the Bahamas' method of testing DNA is in line with international best practices. And while families may be calling for a quicker turnaround, they must understand that there is a process the Ministry of Health must follow.
In a different jurisdiction, somebody had been told that these remains are your loved one, and then a number of years later to find out that this was not your loved one. So it has to be done properly. There has to be chain of custody. There has to be rigid adherence to best practices. And this is not only about bringing closure, but it's making sure that that closure is 100% accurate.
While remains can be stored in coolers indefinitely, Sands said that option is not ideal. They are instead formulating a plan to bury unclaimed remains.
They can be placed in a dignified fashion with an appropriate burial, and if there's a match and family or friends or loved ones were to claim those remains, they can be exhumed and those remains turned over to those individuals. We're in uncharted territory, so that conversation has started. It clearly isn't going to be today or next week or next month, but we have discussed general timelines, probably the next 60 to 90 days when we would effect these considerations.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources is hitting back at a Forbes.com article which stated that the Bahamas' spiny lobster industry has been set back years as a result of Hurricane Dorian. Acting Director of Marine Resources Gregory Bethel said while the hurricane did impact the industry, the article is inaccurate.
While the fishery sectors in both Abaco and Grand Bahama have been adversely impacted, it has not been to the extent of the huge loss of the spiny lobster fishery, as implied by the article. Please note, the major islands of New Providence, Eleuthera, inclusive of Spanish Wells, Long Island, Andros, and the remaining southeastern islands, where commercial fishing is prevalent, remains untouched.
Bethel added that the Department of Marine Resources is currently conducting an assessment of Little Bahama Bank where fishing takes place. Great Bahama Bank remains fertile ground, said Bethel, who pointed out that some fishing operations have resumed on those storm-ravaged islands.
Fishing operations in North and Southern Abaco have resumed. Further, it is known that processing facilities in New Providence are currently obtaining product from North Abaco at this time. We also understand that the efforts are currently underway to restore the fish holding facility located in Dundas Town. The same applies to Grand Bahama, where the impact of Dorian was felt mainly in East Grand Bahama, inclusive of Sweetings Key.
Assessments have reportedly been challenged because fishermen have been displaced. Nonetheless, the ministry is in the process of producing a report which will highlight the impact of Dorian and the plan to boost industry resiliency in the face of natural disasters. Cabinet announcing that the Embassy of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and mission to the European Union will be opened next week in Brussels, Belgium. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis will travel with a delegation of several senior government officials to Brussels on Monday and will return on Friday. Included in his delegation will be Foreign Affairs Minister Darren Henfield, Attorney General and Legal Affairs Minister Carl Bethel, and Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration Minister Ellsworth Johnson. While in Brussels, Minnis plans to meet with the Secretary General and Commission of Ambassadors of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States, as well as the European Commission's Commissioner for Humanitarian and Crisis Management. Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest will act as Prime Minister in Minnis's absence. Well, still ahead tonight, World Central Kitchen continues its humanitarian efforts in the Bahamas, so stay with us.